We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke Financial Partners. This is the Finances podcast. We're joined today by Andrew Clyne and Simone Shannon, who are directors of Ascend Accountants. I'm also joined by my usual co-host, Ben Kemp. So Ben, Andrew and Simone, welcome all to the podcast.
Thanks, Stu.
Thank you for having us.
No worries. Now we've kicked off with all things parenting. I know, Andrew, when you sent me the list of things you wanted to talk about, I think the last thing you said was, can we talk as little as possible about tax and accounting? So we'll do our best. I'll give my little brief on Ascend Accountants, and then I'll hand over to yourselves to give us a little bit of a background. The other thing we always like to do in these podcasts is understand a little bit more about yourselves. So we've crossed paths with you guys over the course of the last, would be 12, 18 months,
yeah.
Ben? Yep. And you guys are relatively new in the accounting space from a business point of view, but you've both been in and around accounting and advisory for some time. So we're excited to talk to you today. Let's start with Ascend Accounting, and then we'll backtrack and talk a little bit about you each individually. So who wants to start? Simone, Andrew, tell us a little bit about Ascend Accounting.
I'll start. Yeah. Simone and I met, probably about 4 or 5 years ago when Simone started working in an accounting firm I was at. We worked really well together then. I think we put in a lot of improvements in that business, but there's still a few things we thought we would like to do differently. One was communication. Like, we're big that we should be speaking to our clients no matter who they are or what size they are. And the other thing is just being transparent about fees and any obligations they have. If they've got outstanding stuff, we'll nag them to make sure they sort of up to date. So their clients are fully aware where they stand with their obligations, what fees they're going to cop from us, and just all that kind of stuff. So that's why we kind of decided to go out on our own.
Yep. And the use of technology to be able to service clients no matter where they are. They don't need to be Geelong based. It's great to do the face-to-face, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, which, yeah, is good. It's going to go broader reach.
Yeah. It's funny that communicating with your clients is a unique proposition, but it kind of is, because in our experience with accounting practices and accountants over the journey, our number one complaint would be a lack of communication with clients. And we share lots and lots of mutual clients with accountants. We're not an accounting practice ourselves, but relationships, we bang on about this all the time, I know, Ben, but relationships are the key element of our business, and also the key element that we like to see in businesses that we partner with or we have a relationship with. So I think those two things, the communication and also technology, which I think we'll maybe expand a little bit more as we go on. Let's go back now, and at the risk of us spending too much time on this, there's a pretty thick connection between all of us here with the Wimmera. Now, as I understand it, Ben's from Horsham. My family all comes from Horsham. We've got, I think, Simone, Warwick, Nabil, and
I grew up in Horsham as well.
So maybe let's go back as far as you want to go back to where you grew up, and eventually what led you to Geelong and Ascend Accountant practice that you're in right now. Go, Simone.
My parents moved to Warrantville in 93 and bought the news agency there and owned it all the way through till, I've had a blank now, until 2019, 2020.
Did you do the books for the...
I didn't. No, I didn't, actually. They had a really good accountant up in Melbourne that was with them forever.
I thought they might have had you working the books as a 5-year-old or something like that.
I was definitely on the payroll. Yeah. Love to serve. So, went to school, grew up in Warrantville, and then ended up going to high school in Ballarat. My parents only moved, down to Teesdale just before COVID when they sold. So a lot of experience in watching, a lot of insight into watching them with their business and the way that they grew it and what they did.
Did your parents follow you, or did you follow your parents down this way?
Oh, they followed me.
Okay.
They followed the kids.
Okay.
I would more so say. But it was really, to be able to grow up in a country town, obviously a lot more freedom, and it was really good. I enjoyed it, watching them grow that business and having that insight, which you wouldn't usually have, was pivotal in doing our decision. I think it's been really helpful.
Now, you ended up in accounting, but as I understand it, you could well have ended up in some sort of professional dancing career. Is that right?
To ask about the scholarship.
Yeah. So you've brushed over a whole heap of interesting things. Number one, that you're a professional dancer, and
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, and that you finished your bachelor degree in Sweden of all places. Is that right?
I did part of it there. So when I went away to school, you got the low hanging fruit. So I did a dancing scholarship and was awarded that, which was pretty funny because I'm the worst dancer you've ever seen. Ask my husband. Yeah, shocking.
So you don't need to have any talent to get a scholarship.
No, but no one else is going for it. I had to give it to
smart.
someone. Yeah.
What type of dance are we talking? Contemporary dance?
A bit of tap, a bit of jazz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look out.
If you've ever seen me on the dance floor, it's not good. Stand away. And I did uni in Ballarat as well. And then did 6 months in Sweden on sort of an exchange thing. And it was really good to have that. I did a double degree of a Bachelor of Business and HR with marketing and law as my minors.
So it was an exchange degree. How did that work?
So it wasn't, it's called an exchange, but just the uni has the exchange. So I go live on campus and participate in uni there, and then they have the option to have somebody back at Ballarat University do the same thing, but you don't personally have the exchange.
Okay.
It's part of part of Ballarat Uni. So it was really good in Halmstad, Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
And so after returning back from Europe and deciding that dance wasn't for you, when did you end up in Geelong?
So I think I had, just after I finished uni, I started my first job here in Geelong with an accounting firm, and I was with them for just over 7 years. And then my husband got a job in Ballarat, so we moved back to Ballarat, had our babies, and then decided we wanted to come back to Geelong. So we moved back here 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep. And we talked about it before we started recording. You've got some kids. How many do you have?
So 2, and then 8 and 6.
Okay, great.
Prep and grade 2.
Awesome. Andrew, let's jump over to you, mate. I'm not sure whether you have any dancing proficiency.
Definitely not.
No? Okay, let's talk about what you did as you were growing up in Horsham. And
obviously I wasn't born in Horsham, but moved there when I was 5.
Where were you born?
I was born in Sale, Gippsland.
Okay.
Dad was a teacher, so he sort of moved around until I was 5, and then he got a job at what's now Horsham College.
Did you go there, Ben?
Yep.
You did?
One of the brightest students.
Really?
Scraped through.
Yeah, and he worked there for, 18 or 20 years or something like that.
What did your dad teach at Horsham?
Accounting, economics.
So Dad's had a pretty heavy influence on your career.
He did. Kind of nudged me towards it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I liked business, so I sort of I came to Geelong for uni, doing a commerce degree, and after my first year, I don't really know what I want to do, and Dad just sort of said, accounting's pretty good for jobs, so I did that. Yeah, and then I was down here for uni, finished that. I moved up to Melbourne, worked in Melbourne, started a small firm, then went to a mid-tier, and then after about 6 years, I decided to go overseas for a couple of years.
Yeah. What just as out of interest, what small tier and mid tier in Melbourne? What sort of size are we talking about?
So the small firm was about 25 people, and then I went to Pitcher Partners, which it's a nationwide firm, and there was 50 people in the team I worked for, and that was one of the smaller teams in there. So I think couldn't tell you the number, but I think it was 4 floors they had in one of the buildings in Melbourne.
Yep.
So that was a really good experience to sort of see how the bigger people do it, far more sort of processes and things like that. Yeah, and then moved to London for 2 years and I got out of public practice and started doing work, sort of management accounting. I had a few jobs over there. I landed right at the start of the GFC. So it took me a long time to get work. Luckily, my wife is a physio, or she was a physio, so she had no troubles getting to work. So I was a bit of I sort of looked after for a few months. I did a lot of running and stuff like that. But then when we got back to Australia, kept working in management accounting. So I worked for some big listed companies. Yeah, my last little stint was I was working for Cricket Victoria, which was an awesome experience. Met some really good people. Yeah, it's sort of funny. You sort of seeing these people playing the Big Bash, and then you're sort of walking around the halls and having chats with them, like in the hallway, Cricket Victoria. So that was, I like cricket, so that was awesome for me.
You play cricket yourself?
I used to a long time ago. Not very good. I was good at the social part, but not so good at the cricket. But yeah, there was a lot of perks there as well. So yeah, I got to go to the three-peat of the Hawks grand final.
Oh, nice.
I'm a Hawks man, but yeah, we got to sit in the members for free. So that was pretty amazing. And then, we moved back to Melbourne. We had our kids. I've got 3 kids.
How old are the kids?
9, almost 7 and 4.
Okay.
And my wife and I, she's grew up in Wallan, so north of Melbourne, and we always said we didn't want to necessarily bring kids up in Melbourne. So, yeah, when Tom, my eldest, was about 18 months, we decided to move down this way. And then, so I was still commuting back to Melbourne for work, which was hard with, a baby. So I started looking for work down here, and then through a Horsham connection, I got onto my old firm and, got back into public practice there.
Did you like switching back, or was your preference to stay in the management stuff?
Can't ask him that. He's locked in now.
Locked in.
At the time, what did you think?
For a long time, I thought that's where I wanted to stay, but I've actually really enjoyed coming back. Sort of, when I went to that small local one here, I sort of got to do pretty hands-on with some clients and got to do some advisory, which I really do enjoy.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy. Like, I don't necessarily have a big leaning one way or the other, but I'm pretty happy where I am now.
A lot of people don't do both. Like, a lot of people don't cross, do they? Like,
no, there's a lot of people start in public practice and then sort of get to sort of like, you've got your CPA or your CA qualification, and then they'll jump out. There's not many that move back.
And so the other way around, I don't know anyone that's started management, gone back the other way.
But I'm the only one that
So for the benefit of the listeners out there, explain the differences between the two.
Yeah, so working like in a public practice that I am now, so we're sort of working with clients doing tax obligations, business advisory. So I've got a lot of clients and help in sort of various different ways. Whereas management accountant, I'm the accountant for a company, and I'll sit there and sort of do like monthly reporting for them. They've usually got a board they've got to report to on a monthly basis, so I'll do all the board reports for the financials, and then just sort of looking up after their individual needs of that one company.
Now, before we jump back into the accounting, you also you could have gone a different way, I believe, if your dad hadn't been such a heavy influence, you potentially could have been a scuba instructor. Is that right?
No, not that far, but yes, I've done, it's been a long time now, but in my travelling days, I did get my PADI licence and have done some pretty amazing dives around the world.
You mentioned one in your notes, I can't remember it. It was a pretty amazing dive through a cave or something.
Yeah, so on the way back to Australia, my wife and I were travelling through Central America.
Yep.
And in Belize, there's a blue hole, so it's probably about a 2-hour boat ride off coast. And it's like I forget what made it, like a volcano, which is just like it drops down, straight down. It's just like this, a cave. So we dropped down to 40 metres, which is you don't really do, and then sort of slowly swam back up through all the stalactites and stuff like that. And there was a couple of sharks that followed us for a while. Not dangerous ones, but that was pretty amazing doing
They're
that.
all dangerous.
They're all dangerous. Yeah, that has me packing my pants, swimming with sharks. 40 metres, that's pretty deep, isn't it?
Long way.
Yeah. It's Belize, so the rules were a bit loose because my licence didn't allow me to go. I could only go to 30, but they said they'll take me to the next level.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds safe. How long does it take you to get up from 40 metres? Because obviously you've got bends or...
Yeah, you've got to do it pretty slow, and then you sort of have the safety stop a few metres below. But because you're deep, that far down, you go through your oxygen a lot quicker as well because it condenses, so there's less there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a long time ago now. Maybe it was a half an hour or 40-minute dive. So...
Do you reminisce about those days? Like now that two of you've got your 5 kids between you, not together, but obviously 5 kids between you, and you've got this relatively new accounting practice. How do you both manage work and also, your hobbies? Do the hobbies still exist, or have you had to ditch them in the last couple of years to focus almost exclusively on the business and family?
Well, I'm quite selfish, so I've just come back from 10 days in Thailand without the kids with my husband. So
who looked after the kids? Mum and Dad in Teesdale?
Mum and Dad and my husband's parents. We got
Great.
Fabulous in-laws. So I think it's important to take time out from work and other obligations if you can. It definitely, I'm feeling refreshed and a bit jet lagged, but refreshed. So that's really important to do that. But it's just, making the time.
So other than travel, what other hobbies are you managing to fit in and around work and kids at the moment?
Oh, not too much for me. Probably I used to love running, but that's been a little bit. I probably haven't done too much of that this year with the business.
No dancing?
Growing. No dancing, no. Trying every Saturday night, but no.
What about you, Andrew? You getting in the water? You doing any scuba, or you got any other hobbies?
I go to a lot of gigs. My wife rolls my eyes at me every time I say I've just got tickets to this. I've got a couple of mates in Geelong that love their gigs.
Chili Peppers, Everclear. I saw a couple of bands from my era there.
Yeah, this year's been amazing.
So there's been a lot.
This year's been amazing for a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, so out of all of those...
to Blink next year? Is that sort of your...
I'm not such a Blink, but I was at Pumpkins at Cry Castle a few weeks ago. That was amazing.
Jane's Addiction I saw as well.
Yeah, they were good.
We just did a clean out at my mum's place where I store some stuff, and I found all of my CDs, and my eldest daughter has grabbed them all, and all of those bands that you went and saw, she's loving them.
It's all back in now.
Yeah, it's all back in, and she was listening to Chili Peppers last night. I said, like they're nearly 60.
Yeah.
Like you're listening to guys who are nearly 60, and the kids love it because the music today's crap. Isn't that right, Ben?
I'm with them. I went to Chili Peppers. It was awesome. But,
we were both at Everclear the other week. Both of us. They were good.
Oh, I remember Everclear clearly in Triple J Hottest 100. I think they had Heroin Girl was, I think, maybe number one. One
Santa
year.
Monica.
Yeah, Santa Monica. That's a great album. Yeah, great album. So this business that you started now a couple of years ago, maybe let's talk about how you guys eventually intimated when we first started, but how you came to the decision to actually go into business together, into partnership, and start your own gig.
was that something also that took a long time to build up to? Like it had been, or did it just happen relatively quickly and naturally?
Sort of like joked about it a couple of times, going, if we could just make our own decisions, that'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, it took us a little while to get there. It wasn't an overnight, spur of the moment thing for sure.
Yeah, I think we were at lunch one time and you sort of made that joke or whatever. And I think we probably both went away and sort of thought more and more seriously about it. And then maybe 3 or 6 months later, I think you brought it up again.
Yeah.
And then from there, it sort of just became a more and more serious conversation. And then,
what were your biggest reservations in thinking about establishing your own firm?
I'm an accountant. I'm conservative.
Yeah. I think it's the unknown. You don't know how it's going to go. Where are you going to get clients from? How are you going to support the business and also your family? Just figuring out, as accountants, we like to be super organised and have everything in place before we go ahead and do something. So
big leap of faith. You can't model out what is going to happen, can you?
No.
Which is difficult for us. Not have all that control. You have to leave it up to the gods to see what's going to happen.
You trust yourself that you do a good job and things will follow, but it's still going to be a period of time where you're literally just starting from scratch, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, confident. Well, yeah, because it's a local business, we weren't going to sort of go hard and steal all their clients or anything. But there was like some clients who were confident that had the relationships with us rather than the partners there that we were confident would follow. Simone had also lined up a client to come on board as soon as we started. So there was a little bit, not enough to sustain a business, but we knew we weren't going to start from scratch.
Yeah. How long had you guys known each other before you had those discussions about joining together?
2-3 years.
So yeah, 2 years, I think.
Okay, because it seems kind of unique. I mean, one of the biggest challenges in going to business with anyone is you have different personalities. Sometimes those personalities seem like they will mesh together well, and then once in partnership, we're complete loggerheads. In terms of the personality differences between you, because it's a complementary relationship. Everything that we've seen to date sees you guys working particularly well together. From your perspective, what is it about each of your individual personalities at work? Maybe, Andrew, you can talk about Simone, and Simone, you can talk to Andrew.
Well, I'm more introverted than Simone, but I think from early on when we were working together, like we used to sit in a room, just us at the old one, and it was quickly apparent that we had fairly similar goals and values, and that, I might not be as sort of upfront or as open as Simone is at times. Yeah, I think we're still relatively similar in a lot of the things that count.
Yeah, different personalities, I think, it came down to our values. We knew our values were aligned. We wanted the same thing. We're wanting to go to a similar place. They're having that in common. And the way we wanted to go about it, the way we wanted to treat clients, the things that we put first were the same.
Yeah.
So the personality part Yeah,
So-
I'm
so ma-
sure we annoy each other. But
Does it make it hard when you think about growing the team?
well, that's where we were aligned right
Yep.
from the start. So our opinions may change as time goes on, but we were sort of aligned on that right from the beginning of what we thought this would look like eventually.
Yeah, but sort of, five, like where we wanted to get to, we were on the same page, and we catch up at least once a quarter to talk about that. And every time we're like fairly closely aligned with what we say our goals are.
So I think that's
So-
really important that we take the time out of the business. So we usually spend half a day, and so the last one we did, or the most memorable one for me, was we went along the Great Ocean Road and we walked about 11 Ks
Yeah,
in the end, and we just, no phones, nothing to record what we're talking about, but we just thrash out all those ideas, and it's the big picture stuff. And then we go back, we have lunch, a couple of beers, and we put it all down, we make some actions, and we formalise the process. So it takes nearly a whole day.
Yeah.
But I think that's the most valuable thing that we do.
Well, that's that whole, and we probably talked about this a lot recently, about working on the business, not just in it.
First
Yeah.
place I worked, they called them Whatbies and Whitbies. It was
Yeah.
working on the business and working in the business.
Yeah.
In terms of the values, so maybe we talked a little bit about at the start that attention to relationships and communication. What other values do you feel as though set the two of you and Ascend Accountants apart from other practices out there?
Full transparency with our fees and the client's obligations as well. If we find something that it's not favourable for them, we're not going to hide it from them. We're still going to communicate it with them. We don't do work for client until both of us have agreed on the fee. So there's no surprises. You're not going to receive an invoice from us that you're not aware of beforehand, and that makes the relationship so much easier. So it's hard. We price our jobs before we know exactly what has to be done. You win some, you lose some, but the fact that we're helping our clients in that process makes it a lot easier.
That's actually also quite a unique method of charging. I know that we've been heavily down the...
I would say it's very, very similar to near the exact same as what we would be doing and do. So, and again, there's a bit of a risk at that start because you don't know what you might find during that process sometimes too.
And we always,
but at least they know where they stand.
We always say that to clients is that, so this is what we think the fee is, this is the work that's involved, it's all clearly mapped out. And if there's something else that pops up that we're not aware of and they're not aware of, we'll have a conversation about that at the time.
Yep.
So before any work's done again. But I've probably had an odd path as an accountant. I've never done timesheets. So from the very
Lucky
first...
you.
I know. It's unheard of. So the first firm I worked in, they had finished doing timesheets. They did... Every now and again you would have to do timesheets for a period just to make sure you weren't missing things. But we sort of found through that process it was mainly the directors that were missing things because they do so many different things that aren't necessarily chargeable but definitely have value. So I was very lucky to have that insight right from the beginning of my career. And I worked for another firm in Ballarat and they did the same thing, value pricing. And then, we've just never done timesheets. I've been very lucky.
How have you found it being received by clients? How do they react to knowing upfront what their costs would be?
Yeah, most of them, well, all of them are like it. No one said no, charge me afterwards. But the other thing as well, I think that opens up that they're not scared to call you.
Yeah.
Because, it's like you speak to a lot of them and they're like, if I call him, he's going to put the clock on and clock me off, even if it's like a 10-minute phone call. Whereas we have unlimited phone calls in all our proposals. And the idea is that they'll come up, if they have a problem or a question, they'll ask us rather than get scared that we're going to charge them a fee and then go do something. And then we have to say, that's not great for you. It's going to, the tax consequences of that are not good. So that would
have those conversations before the action's been made.
I think that's probably aligns very much to us. I say to clients, some years we might talk 10 times and the next we might talk 2.
Yeah.
But it won't cost you any more or less. Like you just need to tell us because we can avoid so many problems if you just call me and ask a question rather than, I'll wait till next time. Which is obviously what you were just saying there.
Yeah, I think giving people clarity too up front, it's almost like any kind of business arrangement too. When you're having some sort of an arrangement or a partnership, you want to agree on the terms so that there's kind of no surprises and that you know what to expect. It doesn't mean you can't adjust course along the way, but if you've got great relationships with people those adjustments, those little pivots, whether it be an increase or a decrease in service or cost, they're just part of an ongoing conversation rather than some sort of major surprise or major upheaval in people's circumstances. So, yeah, as Ben said, it very much aligns with the way we have done business now for probably 15 odd years. It was Peter's instigation, or closer to 20 years, the moving to a genuine fee-for-service model and delivering a set service for a set fee. And it's certainly not without its challenges, but I think in our industry, in your industry, I think it's what we're seeing clients actually appreciate.
Yeah.
It gives clients choice as well. They can shop around and compare prices if they want to. We're not going to be the cheapest, but we're going to offer a much better service than other accounting firms can for the same price. So
maybe let's just talk a little bit about the service. We've talked about the values in terms of service and the use of technology. So how have you looked to incorporate the use of technology, and maybe talk to where you guys house yourself as well? That might explain some of your use of technology.
Yeah, so at the moment we're both working out of a co-working space in town. Obviously rent's a very big expense for a small startup, so that's not something we're prepared to do as yet, and it's not necessary because we often go to see clients or the Zoom, which most clients appreciate. We
started in COVID, so an office would be redundant anyway.
Yeah.
Well, COVID kind of showed us that you can actually do without an office.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah, so everything we use is pretty much cloud-based. We're big on Xero, so we use that for all our sort of practice manager, all our tax, which is good software because it all speaks to each other. And then we use Microsoft, so that can all work on the cloud as well. We've got a casual employee now that works in Ballarat, so she's obviously all cloud-based as well. And we're always looking for the better ways or new technology to sort of do our reporting that's going to make it easier for us. There's definitely a lot out there, so we just need to make sure we're keeping abreast of what's coming on the market and what best suits our needs and our clients' needs.
Do you find that the majority of your appointments are they in person? Are they Zoom? Are they Teams? How are you holding most of your appointments, both initial and ongoing with clients?
So we let the clients make the decision. If they're not in Geelong, usually it's just via Zoom, but we have some that are just up the road that still prefer Zoom because they're busy working and that means there's no travel time. Some clients like us to go out to their business as well. Rather than them come to us, we can go to them. They've got everything there in their office. It makes it easier for them. Some people are happy with coffee shops. And then, there's the meeting room at the co-working space that we use as well, which people like to come to. I wouldn't say there's a majority either way. It's probably Zoom and in person at the co-working space.
Now, we kind of described you as a local firm, but the reality is that you're not limited by location, particularly given that you're fairly heavily embedded with your tech stack, the ability to operate remotely. I'm assuming that you've got clients and accepting clients all over the place, all over the country.
Yeah, so all the way from, we've got one in Perth, or Queensland.
My biggest client recently moved to Cairns, I still catch up with him and speak to him regularly.
It's a convenient place to go and have a in-person meeting.
Yeah. I haven't organised that yet, but it's definitely been spoken about.
So we've got another client that's owned by a Swiss entity, and we're constantly speaking with them as well. So worldwide,
global.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of times the vision. You went on the big walk, which sounds like a good way to have a directors meeting. Feel free to share or not, but in terms of the vision for Ascend Accountants over the course of the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, what would you like to see the business grow into over that time?
Well, neither of us is sort of here to sort of take over the world. We value our work-life balance, and we've spoken to other accountants that sort of have grown big firms, and they just the work consumes them. So we don't want that. So, we will have a team that we'll work with, but it's not going to be a huge team. I think, we'll get to a point where we've grown big enough and sort of almost not stop taking new clients, but sort of slow down and maybe get a bit more selective with who we take on. Yeah. So for me, having that work-life balance where I'm not tied to a desk 60 hours a week, I'd still get to drop my kids off at sport, do pickups, take time for myself. I run a fair bit, so I don't want to give that up. I don't see the point of working yourself all day, every day, and then sort of thinking I'll start life when I retire.
And the other thing is, I guess something that we don't want is to let clients down. So there gets to a point where we cannot return the volume of phone calls and emails and have the meetings that are required of us, and yet we haven't ticked the boxes.
But then you just compromise those relationships you've worked so hard to build. I went to a session yesterday, and this is interesting. They said this was for financial planning, but it would be very, very similar. They surveyed, I can't remember how many thousand people that had left their advisor, and they asked them why, and 97% of them was because they didn't trust the relationship. Only 3% was because they were unhappy with their returns or the actual outcome of their advice. It was actually, I thought it would be tilted that way, but not that heavily. So if you compromise the relationship, then that's what people actually value, more so than ever in a world where we're disconnected at times.
It's so true in the accounting world as well. I don't think we've ever had a client come to us and say, I didn't like my tax return last year, can you redo it and check it? It's always like, well, I can't get a hold of my accountant anymore. They just passed me off to somebody else and I don't know who to call now. There's so many people. We had a client the other day who's come across with us, and that was their complaint, is that they never knew who to call. It was always a different person calling them back. There was no trust in that relationship anymore once they decided to leave, which was, they'd made the right choice once they'd made the move, but they'd had invoices from, and they were a timesheet firm, they'd had invoices from March. When they told them they were leaving, they sent invoices that dated all the way back to November last year. And they're like, well, hang on a second, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think that's one of the growing pains of growing a business, is the point at which you lose that intimacy. And we've been there. So we had a fairly significant period of growth sort of around the GFC time, where we had acquisition of a couple of practices, and clients not shy in telling us, listen, we're concerned that you're kind of losing touch. And that was part of the reason for us to, as you've said, to rationalise to the point where we know that we can maintain intimate relationships with people, and we want to know our clients very well. When we had a dinner in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, and it sounds a bit cheesy, but they're kind of like family. They're our clients like family. And when they roll in the front door here, they know Teresa and Amy and Holly and Tom and Shay and Ben and Peter. It's a very welcoming atmosphere. And as a business owner, that's something that I don't want to lose. And even as we do grow, I don't want to lose that. And that also flows on to, like I said, those businesses that we involve ourselves with, like yourselves, and having values and goals that clearly align. And then from a client point of view, they can see that. They see that continuity of care, and also what they get from us, they will actually get from yourselves as well, which I think is super important to your point then.
Yeah, and this morning I had a presentation to Aspire Lawyers, who you guys have, and again, it's a similar thing. You just get that natural fit where everyone works together, everyone gets it in the same way. It's all about client focus. So whenever you refer anyone out to anyone, you have to have so much trust. Yeah. And there's sometimes people ask for referrals to professionals, and I would just say no, because I might know someone, but I don't have that trust in them to do what they need, whether that be a tradie or, often a insurance broker. There's some gaps in there where you don't have someone, so you don't refer. You don't just refer for the sake of it. You have to have massive amount of trust for that person.
Genuinely care for your clients, you're going to make sure that they're looked after, not just ticking boxes.
Yeah, and it does reflect very badly when you say, yes, I've got someone to send you to, and that relationship doesn't go great. It ultimately comes back and reflects on us. And that's why the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a massive focus on making sure that those professional relationships that we have with other professionals, we try to make sure that they're as intimate as they possibly can be as well, that we know that our values and our goals and the client care is aligned. So maybe let's talk a little bit about how people can find you. So where can people find you on the interwebs? And if someone out there is listening, maybe they're not a client of Burke Britain, maybe they're not an existing client of yourself, but they're looking for an accountant. How do they find you? How do they make contact? And
yeah, so part of our values, or one of our values, was that we were contactable and people could reach us. So our mobile numbers are on our website, so you can call us directly and we will answer most of the time.
The website, so am I right in saying it's www.ascendaa.com.au, so that's ASCENDAA.com.au?
Yep, AA
Okay.
is Ascend Accounting. We're not alcoholics.
Or as a lot of people like to say, Ascender.
Yeah, Ascender.
Yeah, sender.
And then you could, wouldn't say we're highly active on Facebook and Instagram, but we are there, and when we remember, we will put something up there just to stay current.
Yeah, but the website is the best way. There's links on there to book meetings with us directly as well.
Yep.
Which is working quite well. We've get a few through that.
Yeah.
Can I ask, just in terms of that initial process, so for someone that maybe jumps on the website, they make a time to catch up with you, what's your first meeting with a client? What does it look like? What do you talk about? And how do you get to the point where you actually give them a proposal about your service?
So we usually find out a bit about them, and it could be an individual who just needs a tax return done. It could be a business that wants compliance and advisory, and we find out exactly what they think they need, and we often end up talking about their pain points, what's causing them grief, what's keeping them awake at night, and that naturally comes out from them because that's what their concerns are. And then from there, we would let them know the services that we offer and say we'll send them a proposal after we've got to know their business a little bit. So we always like to get to know them first. There's no point saying we'll do this, this and this for you and you've got no idea what's actually involved in their business.
That initial proposal we'll send will usually include more services than what they may end up signing up for, but we'll just give them options and sort of let them know what it'll cost and what we can deliver for them.
Like the old Goosebump books, you can pick your own adventure. Pick your own path.
In terms of those services, you touched on a few of them. Maybe just for those that are familiar, like you talked about individual tax returns, bookkeeping, advisory. There's probably advisory and even I think you talked about sort of virtual CFO offering. Maybe those two. Most people know about bookkeeping services. They know about they've had their tax return done. But for small business owners, those services, maybe talk to the business advisory and also sort of the financial officer service that you potentially offer.
Yeah. So the advisory, the main way we do it, we'll have quarterly meetings. So in that first meeting, we'll have a sit down with the business owners or just sort of the major players within the business, and we'll sort of map out where they want to be, not just like in 12 months, but sort of like the end game as well, because that's often unthought of by business owners, but it's a crucial element because it will help you decide what you're going to do with your business. So yes, so they might want to build a business to sell or to pass down, or just to they might want to grow a massive team and sort of end up that way. We also talk about what they need from the business as well, so sort of touch on what they need to sort of live the lifestyle they want, because there's no point having the biggest business in the world if you're not being paid. So between those two things, we'll sort of map out this is where we want to take the business, and then we'll start breaking it down into smaller sections of like, right, what needs to happen in the sort of like the 12 months, 3 months, and on the back of that, sort of create some action points for them to do over the next 3 months. Because our meetings are generally quarterly, so we'll say between now and the next meeting, these are the things we should focus on, and then we'll come back in the next meeting. And
everything's formalised in that meeting as well. We take minutes, we say who's doing what action, when they have to do it by, and what that action is. So it's not just a g'day, how you going, have a chat. It's all formalised. Yeah,
so the next meeting will come around, we'll sort of look at those action points, what should have happened, what has happened, what's changed, look at their performance, and then sort of reset and go for like what needs to happen in the next 3 months. And that continues on. And then, Sim and I were talking recently that, we've got to sort of come up with a annual review as well for the businesses and sort of start nutting out what's working, what's not, what can they stop doing. Because time is the biggest thing that business owners need. And they never stop to sort of say, these are all the things that I'm doing every week. Like, are they all important or essential to the business? And I'm sure most businesses are doing sort of like little things that they don't need to, or they can maybe outsource and sort of, get better use of their time and spend that on things they're going to help their business or help them personally.
Well, what's refreshing in what you're saying is when you normally hear an accountant talk about business advice, really what they're talking about is end of financial year tax planning, or looking at a year in review and saying, here's the numbers we need to shuffle around. There's again, I don't want to speak too ill of too many accountants out there, but there's not, and this is suppose the point of difference with business advisory, is that we're actually genuinely looking forward, and we're genuinely looking forward not only at sort of financial and accounting metrics, but we're also looking at the things that you've done yourselves in your business, is looking at your goals and your values and where you want to be, and trying to bring those couple of things together. From a financial planning point of view, it's almost like marrying your financial and your lifestyle objectives together, like bringing those two to a point of junction where you can say, this is the financial outcome that's going to give you the lifestyle outcome that you want. And by the sounds of it, that from an advisory point of view, particularly with your small businesses, is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of it is what you spoke about, Ben, having good relationships with other people, because we're not going to have all the answers. We're accountants. We can't give HR advice.
You don't have all the answers?
We've got most of them.
Well, this is the end of the podcast.
We're not financial planners, and we're not insurance brokers, and we're not marketers. There's so many other people, and it's having that network to be able to refer our clients onto that we trust as well to get the results that they need or desire.
You have to have that self-awareness of what you don't know too. I think, and again, I don't want to smear accountants, but there's some accountants, this is probably much older ones, where they don't understand that crossover.
Yeah.
I have clients come in and they go, I had one the other day, and she said, my accountant reckons I should just buy 2 more investment properties as soon as possible so I can save a bit more tax. And
so narrow.
And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, let's take a step back. Why? What's the purpose? What are we aiming to do?
Or another one that had helped her fill out she went in and said, I want to buy some shares in my super. And he printed out the form and helped her fill it in to switch half her super into a share fund. And she's 70 years old and retired. And you just go, where does,
it's very almost transactional, isn't it? It's almost the inability to step back and detach and have a helicopter view of, and it takes time and it takes a relationship to do it, but actually step back and consider all the aspects that go into a person's circumstance. It's kind of sounds cheesy, but it's the way it is, and it's what actually is successful, and it's what clients actually enjoy.
Yeah, and a lot of what we talk about at, say, tax planning time is how we can save tax, but we would always tell our clients, don't go and spend money just to save tax. It's not getting dollar for dollar back. So if you don't need anything, if it's not going to be beneficial, don't do it just to save on tax. That's a waste of money.
Yeah. This time of year, you get a few phone calls from business owners saying, I'm going to go buy this equipment so I can get the tax write-off. And do you need it? And they're like, oh, not really, but I'll get the tax write-off. And you're spending money to save less. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to buy a more expensive vehicle because it's going to give me a greater tax deduction. It doesn't kind of make sense. Ben, you got anything else you want to ask of Simone and Andrew before we wrap things up?
Covered a lot. I'm trying to think of anything else we haven't talked about, and again, service-wise, or anything you guys haven't touched on that you thought we might talk about. We haven't talked about tax, which has been pretty good. So
I tried to avoid it.
So I think it just probably shows the evolution of accounting and probably laying into financial services in general now, that it's not just at the end of the year, send all your statements in and get a tax return lodged. Again, there's obviously people who have very simple tax situations and accounting needs through to the really complex ones too. So you guys probably have a fair mixture of clients from really simple I-returns through to big stuff.
Yeah, so to go back to Jay's point earlier, the virtual CFO. So my main client, which you guys hear me talk about a lot, he's been growing significantly over the years, and sort of his wife used to be involved in the business, and she used to get quite stressed about the cash flow and stuff like that. So to sort of make her life a lot easier, they started engaging us to become more involved in the business. So we sort of manage their cash flow now as far as the bookkeeping. So we go the step further and making the payments, and sort of every week we sort of go through his creditors list and sort of say, these is what we should pay this week. Obviously, he signs off on everything. But we'll actually go into the bank and make those payments for him. He calls me constantly. He called me yesterday. He's just won a massive project up in the Northern Territory. He needs some finance. So last night I was doing a cash flow forecast for him, just based off what's happening on this project, and he's going to send that off to the bank to get some working capital to finance this project while it's sort of kicking off.
So that's like the upper.
That's like the
service,
upper,
and then you go right down to again basic individual returns at times.
It's
probably not returns.
Yeah.
It's probably not your core business and probably not where you want to play, but there's obviously naturally always some of those people that are still attached.
Well, thanks to the technology we have as well, some of those individuals, where it might be a couple of emails or something like that throughout the year. We've got some an app there to gather all their information and sort of like an online questionnaire where they send everything in. So minimal effort from them as well.
Yep.
So they don't have to sort of come in or put time aside to come see us. So for those little ones, they can be quick, painless.
Since we've started, we haven't had a shoebox come in. It's been really good.
You've said that now, you've jinxed it. So.
So, Andrew and Simone, thanks for coming in. I know it was a little bit nerve-wracking jumping behind the microphones for what's nearly been an hour. Is there anything in closing either of you would like to say about your business or to any of the listeners out there?
I don't know why this has come to mind, but we're finding a lot lately there's people that are so behind due to COVID in their tax returns and their tax obligations that, just to let you know, the ATO are now reinforcing fines again. Jump on, get in touch with us and make a start to we'll make it as painless as possible just to get everything up to date and tick those boxes.
Yeah, don't bury your head if the ATO is knocking.
No.
It takes a long while to sort of get back from that.
They're not being as kind anymore.
Yeah, and I suppose, don't be scared to reach out to an accountant. Yeah. They are there to help. If you don't trust them, change.
Yeah. And changing it's not that hard. It is fairly easy to do, and you can have a little to do with that change as you want. Like you don't even have to tell your other accountant. We can deal with all that. Yeah. But don't bury your head in the sand. Yeah.
It's a good way to close out. Don't bury your head in the sand. All right, Andrew and Simone. Simone, keep dancing. Andrew, get back in the scuba gear. And we look forward to listening to round 2 and round 3 of this podcast in future months and years. So thanks again.
Thank
you. Thanks, guys.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britain FP. Or Google Burke Britain Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to, don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility. Do your homework. Ask questions and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britain Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.